Hello, and welcome to PremiumBytes, where we shine a light on the unsung world of insurance technology leaders. I am Sudhar Krishnamachary, one of your co-hosts, and with Samir Ahmed, our other co-host, we're here to have meaningful conversations about the evolving technology landscape inside the insurance industry. Let's acknowledge it. Being an insurance firm CIO or Chief Information Officer is one of the toughest leadership roles in today's world. You've got a risk-averse mindset baked into the very fabric of the industry, a legacy estate that must complement the modern tech, and a talent crisis from both the retiring side and next-gen recruiting side. And then you got the slower pace of innovation. We see it because we're right there in the trenches with you as consultants day in and day out. Our mission is to deep dive, have conversations that carry substance, offer practical insights, and help you validate and navigate the relevant challenges of being an effective CIO in the insurance sector. So thank you for joining us on this adventure. Let's jump right into our next conversation. Hey, Samir, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon, Sudhar. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you. Good to be back on the next episode.
Yeah, here we are, episode 15.
That's right. As always, thanks everyone for the continued support, and hopefully everyone enjoyed the last episode. I believe Samir, we kicked off with that series, right?
Yeah, we're in a series here where we're discussing challenges that insurers have with moving their legacy core systems to the cloud. And our last episode 14, we basically did a landscape kind of view of what are the different themes as we think about this aspect. And really more just identified topics in which we can do a deeper dive. So we talked a little bit about the different, postures around adopting cloud. We talked about what role core system solution providers play in that. We talked a little bit about that there's different decisions depending on, are you talking about policy system or claim system? And how, whether you're a P&C insurer or a life insurer, your decisions may be different. So we didn't really go into details on any one of these, but we identified that these are topics to uncover. And I think today we'll take one of these and go deeper. But before we do that, I'd like to ask all of you listening in that if there's any specific aspect of this broad topic, right, how to navigate migrating or modernizing core systems to the cloud, please let us know in the comments. We'll love to hear and incorporate that in the coming 2-3 episodes that are in this arc.
Yeah, absolutely. And before that, I think we touched on this in the last episode, Samir, but maybe it might be worth to just remind everyone, why is this topic relevant and why should it be interesting for our audience of insurance technology leaders is, I think every company is going through their own journey, and so the choices they have and the decisions that they make and the consequences of these decisions are different. So we believe that this topic is always going to be relevant, even if you have made a decision and you're going through a certain journey. And then I think more and more corporations in general, especially financial services and insurance companies, are also trending towards this kind of a platform-based business models where they're kind of thinking about, well, how does their business model shift with all of these technological changes, and how does that shift the nature of their products and how these products are sold and distributed, et cetera. So a lot of that depends on your appetite and your posture on cloud. So I think it would still be relevant. But then again, back to the first point is that, hopefully everybody's journey is different. So as we kind of highlight some of these things, people will share, and each journey will have its own insight. So hopefully as a community, we can share with each other, the lessons and insights.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those topics that seems to be relevant at all times, even as much progress as an industry that we've made. We still have more to cover on this journey.
Of course.
Yeah, so today, right? Let's kind of keep going on this theme. We touched on various aspects of cloud adoption and postures, so forth, but we didn't really unpack that last time. So today, I think it's appropriate to go deeper into this. And as we think about postures on cloud adoption, I think the key sub themes here are, so first of all, right, is this really just a tech topic that is of interest to tech leaders, or is this in fact something that business stakeholders should care about? So we'll talk more on that.
Yeah,
Then we'll talk a little bit about okay, so if you have no cloud versus everything's in the cloud, right? We think of these as two ends of the spectrum, realistically, right, what are the in between states that are
sure.
possible as an insurer navigates this journey?
Hmm.
Then and if we think of this as kind of a breadth of cloud adoption, right, then we also talk about the depth, right? How uh, much you adopt cloud on a given application. And then we'll talk a little bit about, which cloud to use. Do you, create your own? Do you use one of the public cloud providers, and so forth? And then the last aspect, right, is that are these decisions sort of broadly applicable, or should we think about them differently based on core system, policy claim billing versus auxiliary insurance systems, right? Maybe your marketing system or your agency management system versus your general purpose business systems, right? Accounting, expense management, HR, so on.
Hmm.
So these are roughly right 4 or 5 themes within cloud posture that we'll talk about. And so let's just start with the first one, right? Is this really just something that tech leaders should grapple with, or should
No.
business stakeholders actually take a keen interest in their organization's approach towards cloud adoption?
No, I'll throw a few things on the table. Samir, feel free to react to it. Challenge me or counterpoint or add more to it. But I do think that business and IT, especially with a lot of these agile methodology and things of that nature, have become one integrated teams in making these choices. Two, a lot of the solutions are now also trying to educate the business community as well as the technology community. So a lot of that is like, so the business partners have a vested interest in caring about this. But I do think that at the end of the day, besides the revenue and margin and P&L type priorities a business may have, I do think that they want flexibility, adaptability, and how quickly can I react to a market demand for a certain feature or a certain product or certain type of features within a product or a customer segment, and their ability to innovate and experiment and all that things of that nature, right? And then obviously there's also this ability to innovate, but also experiment without losing a ton of money and investing a ton of capital and all of that stuff, right? So there's a cost and a top line growth related priorities.
Yeah, I think all of that resonates with me. This ability to respond to market forces effectively, right, is certainly a business concern, and you know, cloud technologies are a potential key enabler, or at least one of the key enablers. There's probably many that are needed, or several that are needed. So yeah, I think that all makes sense. But I would offer, right, that there's more aspects that our business stakeholders should consider. So as you think about and commented on, this ability to experiment, well, I think our business stakeholders care about the economics of taking on new technology. Try before you buy, right? Pay as you go. Before you say this is really something we're going to own and take on in a big way, and maybe then you can invest for the longer term. And just by their very nature, right, cloud-based solutions, they enable try before you buy
So
and
it's
pay as you go.
truly a low cost experimentation versus in the old days, it takes 6 months for somebody to provision and then another 6 months to buy, build, and whatnot. So I do think that it does enable a business to be a little bit more agile and nimble, right?
Yeah, for sure. Then, right there's aspects around data residency, right? How do we handle that? How do we manage our data? And at some level, there's some consideration to let people whose business is managing data and securing it, so forth. Let them do it. Why do we think we can do it better? It's not really a technology decision, right? It's truly about owning our data and managing it the best way, which is an aspect of basically enterprise risk management, right? Which then has other dimensions.
That's right. Most important, perhaps, is security. I guess cloud and security has now become synonymous.
Yeah, and of course we can talk more about how to go about making some decisions here. It can go either way, right? It makes things a little bit more secure in some way, but it opens you up to new attack vectors. So we covered cybersecurity in our earlier arc, so
Right.
we've done a deeper dive on that. Point folks to listen in there.
But there's also this idea that vendor dependency, and we'll come back to this in the context of core systems, hopefully as part of the discussion. But I do think that a lot of vendors are also asking business and IT stakeholders to make some of these choices, and which in turn drives cost and capability and speed to market and all that stuff, right? So there's a degree of vendor dependency that business is also looking to as part of their risk management.
Yeah, that's right, and the ability to move from one to the other with more ease than before, right? It's never seamless. There's always effort involved, but it's one kind of effort when everything is custom software, or everything is you know installed on your own infrastructure and so forth, versus being able to move from one software as a service provider to another. So absolutely right. I think all of these are examples of what are really business considerations, right? First, and then cloud has a role in enabling or addressing these concerns. So very much, I would agree that this is a partnership. Everybody should be concerned and take an active interest in.
Yeah, every business has become enormously complex. So I like the partnership, collaboration, and ecosystem. All of those words are actually not any more buzzwords. They are the reality of every enterprise environment.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, and if we shift gears a little bit to the next kind of the section of this deep dive is, what are the realistic choices that are in the spectrum of what we call as this cloud? And for simplicity's sake, we could start with, on one end is the absolutely no cloud, right? I'm a CIO, and my board and my executive team has decided that we're not going to play in the cloud space at all, one way or the other. Or on the other end of the spectrum is this, okay, you know what, we're only a cloud only an organization. So curious if those two ends of the spectrum are even valid, or everybody belongs to the middle.
Yeah. I mean, so picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So we can use this as a way to visualize. But for those that are just listening, yes, if you think of cloud adoption as a spectrum, right? On one end, you have the olden days when everything was in your own or leased data center. And on the far right of that spectrum is everything is in some kind of cloud infrastructure, maybe AWS, maybe Azure, maybe Google Cloud, maybe IBM's cloud, maybe some combination. So in between, right, there are choices and logical kind of pathways, right? So um, first, we can think of as we're taking this cloud first approach. We have no cloud, but anything new that we're considering, we're going to think about the cloud first. And if it makes sense and there's some specific reason, only then do we keep it on premises or non cloud. Typically, right, this is a consideration for building, right? When you're buying, you get what you get, right? So cloud first would say just look for software out there. Another, point here is that okay, cloud first for new tech. What about existing tech? And so there's this idea of being cloud ready, that acknowledge, okay, maybe today we have things in a non-cloud infrastructure, but the future is everything or most things anyways in the cloud. So we got to prepare for migration. So cloud readiness is another waypoint here.
And my gut says a lot of the insurance software perhaps is dabbling within. Well, they're not cloud ready today, but I got to figure out a way to make it cloud ready. But I depend on vendors to do that or software partners to do that. And so a bulk of these decision points are swirling in that packet.
Yeah, yeah. And just to kind of go back to the question you asked a couple minutes back, right? That is anybody in this no cloud space at this point, or is everybody somewhere in the middle? And I would, go on a limb and say that yes, everybody is in somewhere of that spectrum, not on the left end of no cloud. And I only say that, right, because do you know anybody that is not using a internet connected device? Right. People get their email on their phones, right? So forth, right? So
exactly right.
There is cloud technology behind all of this already, right? So whether it's your core or not, we'll talk more. But the enterprise is in some degree of cloud adoption already, no matter which enterprise we're talking about. Now, there may be some exceptions somewhere, but they're truly exceptions in this day and age.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. I doubt it. I would be surprised to see that one exception that, that is completely walled off. But
yeah. So one further just point here, right? That as we think about this, spectrum, if we consider right what that far end looks like, cloud only, right? So we don't need to really reinvent anything here. How do you go about deciding where you're going to be? Gartner popularized their 5R model. I think they came out with it back in 2010 or thereabouts. And since then, others have added some
variations
R's.
Of it, right?
Yeah, some variations,
6 to 7 R's.
That's right. But fundamentally, right, it comes back to this point that, okay, for, every software asset, you have to go through this decision point that are you going to keep it the way it is? Are you going to move it to the cloud? If you're moving it to the cloud, are you doing it as is, which is the rehost? Are you refactoring it or re-architecting? Are you revising it, right? Are you rewriting it completely? Or are you replacing it with a cloud-based offering that's originally from the cloud, right? So these are the choices you have to make, and they are truly per software asset. It's not like you make one choice for everything, and
correct
that, and it's also not choice forever. You can revisit and change your choice as well.
And it's also a very tough choice for most organizations because the application portfolio management is not a simple one, right? There's 500 applications plus 500 plus 600 plus applications on a typical organization, and then 10,000 applications perhaps for highly complex ones.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this exercise, the 5R model, I think very consulting led exercise in many ways, right?
Yeah, whether it's internal or external, right? It is a consultative kind of approach to it. One thing that you always ask about, right, is so what does it mean for our data center, right? We're moving to the cloud, so does it mean I can get rid of my data center?
No, I think that's a great question, right? I think from what I've experiencing as well as hearing from talking to people in the market is that data center still is in play for a lot of mid to large organizations, and maybe even for smaller organizations, and that there is implications for their data center strategy based on the degree of cloud adoption. To your point, just because they might have migrated to Outlook or Microsoft 365, they might have already moved in the direction of cloud, but there's still a lot of their apps running in the data center, and they haven't figured out yet on how to, to your point, like be cloud first or cloud ready or cloud only.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing I would just point out, right, is that there is no enterprise without a data center, right? And when we use this word data center, uh, I think here we're talking about data and systems, right? Computers, servers, so on. You will always need, network equipment and security appliances, so on. So it may not be a true data center, but you will always need some IT infrastructure regardless.
Agreed. Agreed. And then there's, we don't have to dig into this, but it is also depending on, like, if you have a data center that you've already, built, and you've invested in it, you amortized it. And so there's a bit of a cost and an ROI around it. Like, why not, like, take advantage of that as long as you can. Right. And so, and then to your point, like, what are the data requirements that you have? So if you want to house all of your data in your own data center, yeah, then I think that strategy will still be valid,
Yeah.
right?
So if we zoom out here and think of this spectrum as a breadth of cloud adoption, right, from no cloud to cloud first to cloud ready to cloud only,
Hmm.
what might a depth look like, right?
Yeah, I think then depth is, I would say, we kind of go down the stack, to phrase it in a different way, is it's very different posture. If you say, hey, I want just only software that is on the cloud, but I don't want anything else on the cloud, then on one end of the spectrum is the software. And then on the other end of the spectrum is, I just want all of my infrastructure to be on the cloud, and that way, I'm really not incurring any infrastructure costs. So the infrastructure as a service, and then the platform as a service in the middle, somewhere between, having just a pure play infrastructure to a set of platforms that you have on the cloud. And I think, again, back to the insurance, and we'll touch on this, is that is a lot of what we will touch on this core and non-ancillaries, probably more on the platform on the SaaS side and less on the infrastructure side. But the decision is still valid, that do you want to be an infrastructure player on the cloud?
Yeah, and I think this is something that most folks already understand and discuss and consider. So probably not a whole lot unique perspective that you and I can offer on it, but just worth acknowledging, right? This is one of the decision points.
Absolutely. Agreed. Now, I would say if we move to, again, we're touching on the infrastructure in the past. Um, I want to bring in this concept of public cloud, private cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, single cloud, and all of the 17 colors of Benetton here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely another consideration for sure, right? One of the things, and tying back to sort of this idea of data center or no data center, cloud does not mean, you cannot run your own cloud, right? You can have a private cloud. It goes back to sort of these characteristics that your business partners and stakeholders are looking for. Can you have dialing up your capacity as demand goes up and down, or ability to quickly deploy new solutions. So you very much could do that in a private cloud scenario. But that choice is definitely there: private cloud or public cloud. If you go public cloud, then you have the next choice, right? That are you
Before you
going
go to
with?
public cloud, just a
Yeah.
curiosity question. Do you think having your own data center is the equivalent of having a private cloud, or is there a slight characteristic difference that we can say that, everybody, whoever had a data center was always on the private cloud. Now it's just a question of moving from private cloud to a kind of a hybrid or public.
No, not at all. And I don't think it's just a slight characteristic difference. It is very much, I think, you go back to kind of some basics and academic kind of definitions, right? Cloud characteristics are this idea that we call elasticity, right? Your ability to quickly increase your capacity for compute or storage or network bandwidth, or conversely quickly reduce it because you no longer have peaks, right? This characteristic must be exhibited. Now, you can exhibit it in your own data center, or you can go to a public cloud provider. But just because you have a data center doesn't mean you're
Fully
running your
elastic, I
own
guess.
private cloud.
Yeah.
So if your
No.
characteristic is that, there's a increase in traffic on some application, and I need to add capacity, well, okay, let me go to my server admins and tell them to add a server, and server admin says, well, I don't have any left. I got to go through procurement process, and before you know it, like 30 days have gone by because hey, guess what? We have Dell servers, and Dell is backlogged because of supply chain problems. And I'm not making this up, right? This is stuff
No,
we
that's
went through
real.
in the pandemic, right? You just could not get equipment fast enough. So your data center does not mean it's private cloud, right? It very much must exhibit these characteristics of elasticity on computation capacity, storage capacity, network capacity.
No, that's great. And maybe in a future discussion, if anyone of our audience is interested, we could kind of go down this path and double click on this. It's a fascinating topic. Only because like I said, a lot of CIOs are still kind of figuring out what to do with this data center asset. But I just want to also pivot a little bit to this idea that it's a multi-cloud. I do think every mid to large organizations have, by choice or by just nature of the decisions that they've made, have become multi-cloud. And I want to touch a little bit on, like, what does that mean to be a multi-cloud player?
Yeah, yeah. So, and just to kind of be explicit, right? When we say public cloud, we're talking about cloud infrastructure from companies like AWS or Microsoft with Azure, or Google Cloud or IBM's cloud.
Or any
Believe
one
it
of
or
the other
not, they
cloud players,
offer it, and
right?
some people use it.
OCI, Oracle Cloud.
Oracle, yeah, can't forget them. Anyways, right, yeah, AWS, Azure, and Google are the main ones in terms of market share. Um, One way to think about this, right, is that uh, are we talking about applications that we build and manage ourselves, right? Or are we also including, no, if we're using it, which cloud is it in, right? So if we take this broad lens, then yes, I would agree with you. Almost everybody's going to be in a multi-cloud scenario because, look, I get some expense management software as a service. I really don't care where it's running, and one vendor runs it in Azure, the other one runs it in AWS, and so be it. Right. So I think in that broad view, I would agree. Almost everybody is going to be in a multi-cloud. But when it comes to, applications that we are managing ourselves or building ourselves using cloud technologies, that's where this is very much a choice. And few considerations come into play, right? One is sort of your network distance, right? Sure, applications in the cloud, data's in the cloud. We're here in the Midwest, let's say. So I should have, not large lag in accessing the data and transferring data, so on. So that's one reason why you may think about, I want to invest in one cloud infrastructure. I want to invest in one network highway and make sure that things are, performing well for our users. The other one is the data transfer that is occurring. So you may be open to multi-cloud for situations where there's not much data exchange, but when you have heavy data exchange, uh, one is back to network considerations, bandwidth considerations. The other is the cost of data transfer, because
Correct.
uh, it's been
What I'm
something that
hearing is
cloud
that a lot
providers have
of
been focusing on, right? It's they don't charge a whole lot to get your data in, but they charge a lot to get your data out, or
surprise,
more.
surprise invoices coming into
That's
the
right.
desks of CIOs is a big topic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So I think as we're discussing this, right, one way to sort of think about all of these dimensions holistically, right, is that, and we commented on this earlier, this is not like one decision that you make and it applies broadly. You get to make this decision about cloud, no cloud, how much cloud per application. But when you're dealing with 500-600 applications, that can become unwieldy, right? So you don't want to decide this every time. So one approach is, right, to say, let's take one approach for core systems, policy, claim, billing. Let's take potentially a different approach for non-core but still insurance-specific applications like our marketing system and commission system and so forth. And then we can have a different position for general purpose business applications
That
like
makes
our
sense.
HR system, so on.
That makes sense. And again, these decisions are probably point in time, right? So you can always move around this, and you can make different choices.
And believe it or not, there is a reverse cloud migration that's already occurring.
Already
That
occurring, right?
we went too far too quickly without fully understanding the implications, and now we're facing some of the repercussions that are not desirable. And so some of those are being walked back from the cloud into self-managed. Still cloud, right? Characteristics are there, but more like private cloud rather than public cloud. So,
Correct.
so that is
Hey,
happening
on
as
this one,
well.
I don't want to lose sight of this. As the complexity goes up, one of the things is talent. Do you have talent that is fully cloud knowledgeable, technically, especially technically, right? And to be able to manage through this complexity and all of these different ends of the spectrum, right? I think a lot of the insurance company talent is, I think there's a trend in upgrading that talent, but there's also a lot of what I would call as a talent that have grown from the days of our own data center and our own infrastructure, and may or may not be fully capable of delivering value and solutions out of these new way of multi-cloud complex environments.
Yeah, until they upskill, right? So absolutely, either upskill or get new talent, right? So very much a
And then that
consideration.
is indeed the conundrum that many of them are in, is how do you upscale, how long to upscale, and how much to upscale, and all that stuff, right? And then then you have the retirement conundrum in insurance, with a lot of talent retiring, and now you have to somewhat like be prepared for, are these people truly interested in upgrading? And so probably a worthy topic in itself, but I don't want to lose sight of this as the complexity increases. It all depends on how good a talent that you have to deal with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can not emphasize that enough. One other, aspect just to acknowledge here, and perhaps we'll cover this more next time in more detail. But in a general sense, all of these dimensions that we've discussed so far, right? How wide you go in your cloud adoption, how deep you go in your cloud adoption, private versus public versus single versus multi-cloud, so on. In a general sense, these are all available choices, but your solution providers have a role in sort of constraining the choices you practically have. And what do I mean by that, right? So let's say in the P&C space, two market leaders with core systems, right, would be Guidewire and Duck Creek. And Guidewire for a couple, 3 years now has been on this path of traditional licensed software is frozen. No new features are being added. For new features, everything is in the cloud-based true SaaS offering. And Duck Creek just at this year's I think they call their event Formation, right? They made this announcement as well. So it will, constrain the choices that are available to folks that want to use those systems. So they have a role in this as well, and there's some implications of that. So, like I said, we can talk more on those in next
absolutely. I think that's worth
here.
Double clicking. And again, it comes back to what is the ROI, what is the benefit, what are the features that you get or not get, what is the complexity of the products that they will put on that, what kind of data migration or conversion requirements. And so it kind of adds a new dimension that we can double click on. But maybe it's worth perhaps bringing it right back into acknowledging that I think there's really no set pattern or strategy. I think you touched on a framework a little bit on that Gartner 5R or 6R or 7R framework, how to make those decisions. And, our visual somewhat helped think through some of those choices as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. We started out with why is this still relevant? It's relevant because everybody's on their unique journey, and so unique journey means, sure, there may be some patterns and commonality in approaches, but there's no cookie cutter solution. So the best that one can offer in that sense is how to go about making this decision and revisiting the decision as time progresses.
Correct.
Because these are not once and done decisions.
Absolutely, and significant changes happening, and a lot of this depends on, and I think we use the word collaboration, consultative solutioning, and so I think you have to involve your partners, you have to involve your vendors in these decisions. So always a consultative solutioning is the key, and making sure that, like we talked about on the talent side, bringing your people along and making sure that they are ready to embrace all of this is also critical. So with that, I guess we can wrap up.
Yeah. A lot to unpack in a short amount of time. So hopefully we did justice to it. All of you listening in, right? Please let us know what aspect did we not cover. We'd love to address it in the next couple episodes within this series. But even so, right, when you like and comment on our content, it gives us energy and validates that we're on the right track. So please subscribe and share, and appreciate your continued support.
Yeah, thanks for the support, guys.
And that's a wrap for today's conversation on PremiumBytes, where we shine a light on the unsung world of insurance technology leaders. Thank you for joining us on this adventure and being part of our community. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and follow us. Until next time, take care.